What's going on, ladies and gents? That's right, we're here for Into Somewhere. It's the countdown. I'm back once again with my favorite person in the whole wide world, the one, the only. That's right, it's Spaz Phoenix. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on, buddy?
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Thank you, sir. We'll be doing this again tomorrow on a slightly different topic, but you can't be saying that I'm your absolute favorite person when we got the one that filled my shoes a couple of nights ago sitting right there in the chat. So I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Liz for stepping in when I wasn't available and getting my Christmas on. So thank you. And
she did a great job last week helping out with Saturday night's main event. We had a great time. You can go ahead and
lots of fun.
Check her out on Twitch. You know, link should still be in the description box down below, but I figured we'd go ahead and discuss some of the good and bad from WWE this year. You know, I have been looking forward to a lot this year, and that's a big surprise because we've suffered through many of the just pitiful and downright awful years that were the end of the McMahon era. And we had to bring out the tarps. We had a limited audience, declining ratings. Everything felt like it was just fading away. And then a little glimmer of hope, a new startup. They lose their way, and WWE finds success. It certainly feels like a fantasy in ways, the way everything turned out. But we thought the new upstart would be the big powerhouse, but Triple H, he's got this damn thing on locked and stocked. 2 smoking barrels, ready to go. Milo's, there we go, on this side behind me. He's raring to go.
Boom.
How about you, Sir Spaz? I mean, this has been one hell of a year for WWE, surely.
We're having lots of fun, for sure. We're going to get into, I think your 3 and 3 are going to be a little bit more specific than mine. That's the way it goes. We're just going to ramble on a couple of my topics. Shout out to Jimmy K. AS in the chat, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, for mentioning the Raw logo set for Netflix.
Yeah.
We saw the press conference today. I personally think, for no particular reason, WWE should always do their important press conferences on a Wednesday. No reason. It just feels like a good press conference day. How about you?
So funny that they had the press conference today, and that's going to be one of the big talking points. But shout out to Nate from VA. We got Jim Kays and Liz. So many people, tuning into the chat. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. So yeah, I mean, I've had the countdown on here many moons ago, and I was like, you know what, we're gonna bring it back, end of year style. New Year's tends to be my favorite holiday. I foolishly like the chance of a resolution, a chance to start over, to start anew. And
an entirely fake reason to go, and we're starting again from now.
Because this will make it different.
When
exactly
in 4 months, the Raw after WrestleMania, we will do the same thing again, because that's the beginning of the wrestling year.
And it restarts now. And just like Raw on Netflix, my God, do they just keep stacking that show?
That card is insane.
Whew. I mean, how many women's matches and men's matches do we have for titles announced already? Then we have Solo versus Roman. It feels like
we've got the tribal combat. We've got they've already clarified that Rollins versus Punk is going to be the main event. So I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that tribal combat opens the show. I can't imagine it being too high on the card, seeing as it's technically a SmackDown thing. They're establishing the women's IC title. What's going on, Casey is Raw? Nice to see you in the chat. We've also got the ladies title. It's supposed to be like one more round of Liv versus Rhea, which makes me think that in this shuffle that they're doing, one of them is going to go to the other show. As much as I love Rhea, and she is like one of the powerhouses of WWE, I'm kind of curious as to what she would look like on SmackDown after the press conference that we saw. I think she gets her guts ripped out one more time and ends up on SmackDown mixing it up with Nia Jax and Bayley and the other one that I'm going to talk about later.
Yeah. And, so like you said, I mean, there's just so much happening. John Cena's going to be there. Supposedly, we'll get some type of reveal announcement about the future of Jade Cargill and the women's tag team titles.
Fair, yeah.
Because we're supposed to have.
They are okay. This is gonna be a stream or a show where we gloat a lot about WWE. and we're gonna say where they fell short because we're actually fair like that. We're not like the guys on
I
the
do
other.
have negatives, absolutely. They're
Oh
not
yeah, but
perfect.
that's why we did 3 and 3. We just didn't do three.
Exactly.
I will say right off the bat, and it's going to tie into something I'm going to say later on. Whatever they are doing with this Jade Cargill story, because there's titles involved, they are really dragging this out to the point of by the time they make the announcement, I don't think anybody's going to care.
Yeah, and I'm telling you though, but it's just like again with that something for everybody. So you like CM Punk? Well, he's going to be the main event. Oh, you like Drew? Oh, you like Cody? Oh, you like Roman? Like there's just that. Oh, you like the women's division? Well, we got title match. Oh, you like so it just has that good feeling nature. Something
CM
for
Punk out
everybody,
there in a suit today
right? I
at
mean, that
Scotland.
was a little, unfamiliar territory.
You know what I will say, right? And it's not on my list, but it's a good thing to start. It's a not storyline, not in ring wrestling related thing, and it was kind of exemplified on the Raw Netflix kickoff thing, hosted by Michael Cole as it usually is. You see the amount of love and respect and appreciation that Michael Cole gets these days, which is well deserved, probably overdue. I'm going to put in an honorable mention for just commentary in general in the past year or so.
Yeah,
More relaxed. They sound like they're having a lot more fun. We can say what we want to about Vic and Booker on NXT because they are at sort of maybe the height of having fun to the point where it's not everybody's cup of tea. But you get somebody like Pat McAfee in there who's a firecracker, and he's almost better when we don't see him as often because it's like a shot of adrenaline.
yeah.
Commentary in general. It's a cliche, but like handcuffs off, everybody seems like they're having a good time. Michael Cole's kind of loosened up a little bit, and he's sort of taken the love where people want to give it. And because there's a
And
long
yeah,
time,
kind of.
look back over 25 years or so, the only response he was getting was, "Well, you're not Jim Ross."
And for a long time, he was so micromanaged by Vince that the only time I saw any emotion from him or a glimmer of that youthful, exuberant excitement that he used to have, like that, oh my, was when he called the cruiserweight tournament with Brian,
Oh
and
yeah,
that was
I
when
think because it was out of the focus, right?
exactly, and it wasn't micromanaged by Vince on the headset either. We heard so that he had freedom because he was in control there for commentary, and that's when they started letting Michael Cole get more of a like lead commentator, like being the head of that area, and he became like the guy for commentary, and it just kept brewing from there, and it got better and better. But I mean, there was a point in time where no one could stand Michael Cole. He was terrible, and now I enjoy him, especially with how he's kind of changed things. But it's also about who he's working with. I love that
Yeah.
when he was Pat. Pat is a great, obviously foil to his, superness, but also Corey Graves has done a great job. Even Joe Tessitore
thing
on
thing
Raw
thing
has
though
been
with
good.
Pat and Pat like makes no bones about the fact that he's kind of, even when it was his full-time job, he still kind of came at it loosely, like, hey, I'm the guest at the desk, I'm working with the great Michael Cole, etc. He wouldn't be able to do what he does if Michael Cole didn't have the handcuffs off of him now, so that he could kind of
Absolutely.
laugh along with the joke. If Michael Cole was still under those restrictions where he had to be like the sort of straight laced commentator, oh my god, I can't believe the seriousness of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Like now they have that little camera under the desk where they get people's reactions every now and then, where they only used to do it with Morrow because
Yeah,
Morrow
because
was
Morrow
the
was
only one with
overly
personality.
animated. Yeah, the bipolar rock and roller used to fly out of his desk, naturally, and he wasn't even trying to be any bit extra. That was just him.
Yeah.
He was over and very animated. So I like that they kept that.
With no dig at Michael Cole, but can you imagine if we can sort of push two eras together, like back to the Takeover era? Can you imagine a commentary team of Mauro Ranallo and Pat McAfee?
Oh my God.
The energy would
many
be through the
times
roof.
have I seen that, and even Maple Leaf Pro, whatever they're doing up there now, and
Oh, yeah.
hearing Morrow again, that was a fun thing.
Oh,
But
it's fantastic. And
instead
hearing
of-
him on the boxing for anybody that pretended to give a shit about boxing for a
Yeah,
night.
oh yeah, that as well. So he was great there too with Tyson and Jake Paul. So you know what? We teased it long enough, Spaz. Let's go ahead. We'll bring it back. Let's get into the countdown. That's right. We're back, sir. We're duking it out in our little wrestling ring here. You and I are going to be going head to head. But I like what you said already. You basically headed right into what I was going to go ahead and talk about. My honorable mentions. So right off the top, I didn't want to put this as like my favorite moment, or because it really isn't a moment, but it's a bit of a production revolution.
Okay.
They have gotten rid of the Buckytooth Beaver, and things have just slowly started to feel like it's changing. You know, you might have certain things happening in the background, but at least it feels like, hey, the direction has shifted. The long one-shot entrances, you know, we really got that great night with Jey Uso, yeah, to start after Mania, and then from there they started messing around with things. The smaller stages to fit in more people, the small screen flex, the 8K high quality shots before a title fight where they have, you know, the title, the champion, the challenger, and you get that crisp, clean, super HD 8K picture.
It almost seems surreal for a second, because you almost I know it's the action, it's the people in the ring that are what draws us to the ring, but like you're already there, and it draws you in just that little bit more. It clicks something in your brain that says this is the big shit now,
and it makes it feel like this is more real because it feels like a naturally evolving thing. You see Punk in the back, and he's getting into it with the American Alpha guys, being like, "You guys kind of suck for what you did. Hit my music. I got to say something in the ring."
Yeah,
you know.
Now
those
I will
type
say
of things.
there is another side to that, whereas every now and then they just do it to do it. And I would rather them do that than hold back on it. But there's the odd time where it's just, oh, people like the one shots, so let's do another one next week.
Yeah.
Now, there's a balance to it, but I like that they're playing around with stuff. I'll piggyback on that because the whole cut and paste, every show looks the same. They've got the same Tron. They've got the same big LED screen and all that. I like not necessarily any one thing that they've done differently than that, but that they keep bouncing back and forth between things. Like they've got the low Tron that they have now. When they had the big audiences after WrestleMania, there was people literally behind the Tron, and you had them like sort of looking up,
stacked in, right around it.
But even when there's not that many people, and they have like sort of like that black starry kind of generic background behind the Tron, it works. When you get into an arena where they don't have even room for a stage, they've got like sort of that LED tunnel.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
I'm picturing specifically last year's Survivor Series when Punk came out, because it's not a screen per se, but they're walking through it. It reminded me of, I don't watch boxing, but it was kind of like what the boxing thing was like on Netflix.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly.
Even something, you and I were talking about this earlier today, something as simple as taking NXT out of the Performance Center and into what's the name of the building they were in Lowell last night?
I always forget the one in Mass.
But it wasn't like they didn't just recreate a mini version of that stage from the PC. They had that sort of square kind of claustrophobic thing, and it wasn't even a big entrance area. It was like actually in the corner, so they were coming from a different angle, which is all little tiny shit, but it's the fact that it's not one specific thing. Like I said, like I don't say, hey, I really like what they did on NXT last night, which I did, but it doesn't mean, okay, tuck your entrance in the corner every week. Try something different next week when you go to I looked at the Shrine in LA where they're doing New Year's Evil, and it's a banquet hall. Like, do something like mock classy with it. Do something with make up a wrestling's version of a chandelier.
Yeah, and it's a memorial auditorium in Lowell.
Yeah,
that's what it is. I always forget it because it used to be something else beforehand. And I mean, we even got kind of the lineup for next week with NXT too, and that'll be the Christmas Eve episode. So yeah, as I was going to make a mention of. So we know what's happening. So it won't be like a real must see, but it still feels like, hey, don't miss it. But again,
I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but it's basically confirming some stuff that we already kind of know. Let's
who knows? It's Christmas Eve. Maybe we'll get an appearance from Santa Claus. But honestly, with
let's
everything
have
about
RIP for Javon Martin's jaw, or Javon
Evans.
Javon Evans. There we go.
I got you.
His jaw, where they did the Pillmanization, but they made it look like they popped his head like a grape.
Before we take off, we are going to comment on that, and obviously we'll touch base more on this week's NXT tomorrow night on your channel for the State of Wrestling. But
we will be doing quick plug. Yeah. We're doing the best and worst of 2014 I cannot speak tonight.
You're with
2024 here tonight on the stream. Tomorrow night on the podcast, we are doing our 2025 wish lists.
Looking ahead.
For mostly WWE. I've got one slight thing that sort of hints towards TNA. We're not going after AEW because we're trying to be nice. It's the holiday season and such, and that is a gift. But I've got 5 wishes for next year. Jake's got 5 wishes for next year. That's what you can look forward to on the pod going forward. And as usual, these streams end up on my audio audio outlets as well for anybody not able to join us live. Apparently, some of you guys have really been enjoying the audio versions of these streams. That's really awesome to hear.
In the description box down below, you'll find links to Spaz's content, his channel, our most recent State of Wrestling, and Liz's Twitch as well. You can check it out over there. So, yeah, one other thing I mentioned too with the production. Again, this is just a honorable mention. I didn't know where to put it, but the drone shots.
Drone shots are awesome.
They had that great one last year with Backlash, but since then they've done some really cool things with like Logan, his spot jumping through the table. It was memorable, and
with something as simple as doing it from a selfie camera.
That was great too, And
what I like as well,
the innovations feel real.
The other one that I really like, and yes, it's a flex on how many people they have in the building, and yes, some people don't like that. Even when it's not somebody's specific entrance, I like the occasionally they've opened up the show. When they do like the wide like city shot of wherever they are in the whatever arena, and every now and then they'll have somebody with a camera like coming in the front door all the way into
through all the fans. Yeah, they go into the actual
get that shot
stands.
From the nosebleeds.
And you see all the people. That. Yeah.
Because then you can't just say, oh, well, maybe all the people are on one side of the building. Well, no.
They're not afraid to spin the camera around. No, certainly. And this kind of goes into my second, mention of a, before we actually get into our tops, is just the overseas nature of WWE at this point.
Yeah.
They've been a global brand for ages, but until recently, have they actually felt like it? It was kind of, we had UK, that was global. But it wasn't, now we've seen them
France
everywhere.
set the bar. And
yes,
Triple H has said it with every, and that was this year's Backlash, but he said it in every like kickoff, every post show. He said, are you going to be as loud as Paris was? And we've gotten a couple. I'd like to think, I don't know how it came across on TV, but when I was in Toronto for Money in the Bank,
was great that night.
It sounded loud when I was in there. Obviously not for Heatwave because there was less people.
No, but you guys were crazy for Money in the Bank, and that's what made it exciting. And that was kind of my point too. It's that they've been able to take these, I don't want to say bland because that's the wrong word, but predictable in a good way shows. What would occasionally feel like a five-card house. Yeah, the house shows that you would kind of be like, oh, they've taken those and not only turned them into an event with a global audience, but they turned it into a must-see thing because it's like, how loud is the audience going to get? How are they going to react for this hometown person? Oh, Drew's here. Oh, Gunther's here. Oh, Rhea's there. Oh, Bronson Reed, we're in Australia. Those type of things.
But the thing about it is...
It adds to it so much.
It's a circular thing, and, I mean, say... we here, like, you and I are basically in the same country almost, but if they announce a show in Australia, it doesn't do anything for us that it's in Australia. That doesn't make it in our hometown or whatever. But what it does is it gives us a different audience, a different sounding audience, a different type of response.
Yeah.
What it does for the people there, it makes them feel like they are the event. Like, Australia, we're so glad to see you. Paris, we're so glad to see you. Scotland, we're so glad to see you. And the audience gives it back. And if there's one thing we learned from COVID is that part of the show is the audience.
Yes.
So they give it to wherever they are. Wherever they are gives it back. And those of us watching benefit from it because the wrestlers are going to wrestle different when they're getting that reaction. And then that makes the show better for us.
I'm looking forward to being live at different times of the day for certain, it's like, oh, you now you can tune in when you want to, but it'll be there for you. I like the ideas of that. Any more honorable mentions on your end, good or bad?
Not really. I'm going to talk a lot about breaking out of shells. I did it with the display, and the way it's presented, the way it's filmed, and all that kind of thing, which you touched on.
Yeah.
Just the big benefit of being an international show, doing international pay-per-views, international specials, etc. It broke us out of that, okay, la-di-da-di-da, let's twiddle our thumbs until 8 o'clock on Sunday night because that's when pay-per-view happens. WWE's saying, nah, we can do cool shit anytime.
We can have it on the Saturday. We can do it Sunday. We can.
We can go to Australia and you're going to get your ass out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. And people bitch about that. And I'm a little bit biased about this when it comes to this because I listen to a lot of What Culture. What Culture is based in the UK, and their response is kind of what I'm saying. Like, we're pretty lucky on this side of the world as far as WWE content. It's basically the last thing we watch before we go to bed. We don't have to wait until midnight for it. We don't really have to get up for it. If they do a show in Australia, cool. Show me that awesome shit happens at a time other than 8 p.m. on a Sunday.
Exactly. And one of the good things is that I appreciate about it as well is that, people overseas are going to get things in their time zones at times now. So it'll be, they don't have to wait till 2 a.m. for a Raw because they don't want to have it spoiled for them and these type of things. And then on top of it, with the era of streaming, things have changed. You kind of watch when it's convenient for you now.
Yeah.
And I get not wanting to get things spoiled, but all in all, it is kind of easy to avoid spoilers for the most part if you stay off, mindful of it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying things aren't always out there, but WWE's been better about like must-see moments being available widely, those type of things. So they put it out right afterwards on a network on YouTube. But granted, I'm happy with them doing that.
Where the funny thing is going to be is if we get to, because we're going to get that run-up show as we get into WrestleMania season where they're doing 6 weeks in the UK?
Yes.
And they're all going to be live. So I get home from work 4-ish on a good day if I'm not doing overtime. I'm going to probably throw it on at 5. Once I've, dusted the day off or whatever, turn it on at 5, skip the commercials if there's commercial, done by 6:30 or 7.
Exactly.
8 o'clock is going to roll around and I'm going to be like, it's 8 o'clock on a Monday. What do I do?
Yeah. Now you've got to
now I
figure
go to
out
sleep.
something else. Yeah, exactly. Now it's time for an early bed. So
the only thing that's going to suck is, it's not going to suck. It's just going to be something that'll change over time.
Yeah.
Is people that are used to those times that do, and we don't do it particularly, but that do the watch along content.
Yeah.
I always go out of my way to shout out the guys at Wrestling for Life, KJ, Nick, Ringsider, Anthony, over on the Wrestling for Life thing, and they do the watch along. So what I lose in the mix is maybe I don't get that watch along that I'm used to now. What Culture used to do the same thing, and we might not get that as much, but those content creators are going to find
it might not always be
ways
live.
Yeah.
That's the thing too. They might be able to do things after the fact as well, so it could work out still.
Well, they'll get an after stream like me, but I've really
the togetherness of the watch along is the. I
really got into that sort of watch along. What you had initially asked me if I wanted to do some watch along, and it's like, no, when it's happening, I'm lazy. I'll talk about it afterwards, or we'll text about it or something.
Exactly.
But
See, I was more conditioned with it, with how we used to cover it, and now
I don't think I could do it because there'd be dead air. I'd just be watching
to me,
the show.
It feels like second nature because I've done it for so long. But I agree. Yeah. You find the little niches that fit for you. So. We'll get right into it.
And hey, one time we had to these people had to wait a whole day to hear what we thought about something.
Exactly.
So we just lost
hours
the plot.
behind. Damn Comcast, hours behind. If you notice,
you and your rivalry with Comcast.
I have gone ahead and started to move stuff. So now the camera's over here because I shifted my desk. So I keep looking over here, but it's not with the light anymore. It's over here. So I'll have better lighting coming up soon. But it's just
I'm watching us here.
Yeah,
and
right.
My camera's over there. So I'm not doing any better.
You got us in every space. So.
See, you cleaned up your area. I just threw up a graphic and hid my mess.
You managed to
because I'm talking into a corner.
The green screen's coming. It could be a ferret.
Nice.
Never know. So, starting off with, I'm going to start with the worst category. We'll end it with the best. But top 3 worst. I'm going to say right off the bat, the top number 3 for me, sad to say, has been the Raw Tag Team division. And I know we just got a title change with the War Raiders, but it felt so just forgotten about with the Judgment Day. Holding the titles, they didn't defend them. I think they had 2 defenses in over something like 100 days. their third defense, they lose, or fourth defense, excuse me, they lose the belts, you know, so either third or fourth. It just, for a long time. So we got a bit of a comedy act because the belts were unified before then, and then they decided to split them. And I was worried about that to begin with how they were handling tag teams, but I said, we'll give it a shot. And the SmackDown side of things has been this compelling, constant flowing story. People, you know, fall in line, pieces move in and out, but it's still a narrative that's continuing. Now they took the bloodline out of it, and you've got the heel DIY group, you know, feuding with Motor City Machine Guns. But when the bloodline had the belts, it felt purposeful because they were it was
part of a greater whole.
Yes, and they were putting a stranglehold on SmackDown. They were going to control every facet that they could get their hands on. As where Judgment Day didn't really feel like that sinister gonna take over group anymore, and even though they're
a bit lighter now.
Yeah, but even turning against their own with Rhea and Dom, you know, breaking apart, and him going with Liv, and Priest doing his own thing, kind of. It's just not been great. The focus of the tag team has been on Finn and obviously Damian Priest, so the tag belts were just really sitting off to the side. And you look at what we got, you know, Miz and Truth. It was kind of like a, hey, this is great for, you know, our Truth kind of thing. It was nice to give Miz flowers, but they had a very, very lackluster run with those belts. It was extremely short. I think they had maybe one TV title defense before they lost them, and that was it.
I think it was more of a recognition WrestleMania moment for R-Truth,
which I was happy for.
As much as that's a bad, it's not a great long-term storytelling thing. I'm all for, you know, somebody like an R-Truth that is so easy to slip under the radar. Yeah. I'm glad he got it. Ryder at Mania in the ladder match, getting his IC title. Somebody we're going to be talking about in the coming weeks and months, I would assume.
Yes.
But no, it's very cool for that. But at the same time, when you know it's just hey, you know, thanks for all your hard work type moment, you know it's going to fall apart pretty quick. There's other things coming, like there's things cooking up. Like Tozawa and Otis are a comedy team.
Yes.
But they're both really good wrestlers in their own way.
Yes,
like Otis
strengths.
is really underrated because I think they lean too much into character if I want to be really critical. Yeah. But you got them, you got the Creeds, you got the War Raiders with the belts. You do have AOP standing behind Karrion Kross. Like there's teams there. I think a lot of people are thinking in the way you're thinking is that a little bit more up off the ground is SmackDown, but you got to remember, like, in my opinion, SmackDown has the advantage of having the news story in their corner. Like they picked up Motor City Machine Guns, and Motor City Machine Guns, is just an awesome team to have on your roster.
Certainly.
But outside of them being an awesome team, and I'm really happy for them. I've wanted to see them mix it up with some of the guys here for a long time. I would actually love to see Motor City Machine Guns versus Finn and JD, if I'm honest.
That would have been a great match as well, if only they were defending the damn belts. Yeah.
Well, this is true. But like I'm saying, like SmackDown has the advantage that not only do they have this great new team on their roster, but they were a topic of conversation and a topic of anticipation for so long before they actually showed up. Like, they finally left TNA. They're probably going to go to AEW because AEW is the tag team place, except they're not.
It seemed like that's what their niche was going to be over there, that they were going to finally have really good tag team wrestling, and even that kind of. Have we seen Private Party?
But when the EVPs don't have the belts don't matter. Anyways, we're not doing that. But I'm just saying, like, so even before they showed up on the show, for sure, for real, like it's official type thing.
Yeah.
Where was I going with that now? My head just totally fell out of my ass. No, sorry. They were already built up, and they were an act that was built up at the fans' minds before they even showed up. So SmackDown
previously established.
Gets to benefit from that momentum. But even if you look at SmackDown, they're having a lot of fun. There's a lot of other ancillary teams in the background as well. Like there's Legado, they're doing stuff, and there's some other teams that they can play with. We didn't even mention the newly heel turned New Day on Raw as well. So it's not like they don't have the roster. I'm more excited about SmackDown because I love a push for DIY, and like I say, Motor City Machine Guns are there, but I don't think there's that much more depth on SmackDown. I just
No,
think currently the one or two teams that they're using are teams that I'm really invested in.
Raw
Both of them
kind of
across.
suffered with one thing, and that was evidently obvious. And
Yeah,
it's less a fault of their own, but they still had a 3-hour show to be told in two
yeah,
hours, and they had a third more of the roster on Raw. So it was
yeah,
like, what's more important, the tag team or the women's champ and the men's champ and like the singles type. So I get what they
yeah.
decided to focus on and when. That's
But
why,
the fact that they had more time to play with does make it a more grievous
yeah,
complaint then, because you have even less of an excuse. So
you should, but
maybe I am leaning more toward. I was trying to excuse it because I thought SmackDown had a little bit of an advantage, but maybe you're making me rethink
maybe
it right here as we speak.
I'm bringing you to the dark side. So, what's
Yeah.
your number 3 for the worst of 2024's bad?
Oh, my. See, mine are so generic that they're not, oh my God, this is terrible. It's just
Hey,
three things where it's like, this could be better.
that's why I said no
Um,
parameters. We're just talking points,
yeah.
but that's perfect.
So I don't want people to think I'm going super heavy on things that I think just could be a lot better, because WWE is now allowing us to expect more from them.
Yes.
It's gonna kind of piggyback on what you're saying, because there's a big section of my positive category that has one glaring negative element. Can we please free up the women's tag team championships?
Yeah, that's been another issue, and I get now we don't know, is Jade injured? Is she not? Is it legit? Is it not? Alvarez is sticking to his story. He's like, she's injured. That's 110% what they're doing. This is how they cover for injuries. And Rhea was actually injured when they did the same thing for her. But then again, they just did this for Cody, and he's not injured, so it's not 100%
To be fair,
average
this
there.
this complaint, at least from my side, stems from way before they did the injury angle.
Oh, long before the women's
I
tag
don't
titles still have
people
been neglected.
people that have been following you or me or both of us for a long time know Bianca Belair is not my favorite person. This is not that. I'm trying hard not to land on that, but when I see the way the two of them are presented, and I think Jade Cargill is fantastic. I think Jade Cargill,
She's
for
got it.
as new as she is to WWE, she's got to be one of the breakout stories of 2024.
Absolutely.
She's one of the behind Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. Let's be real for a second. She's one of the biggest they came the other way stories of
Yeah.
2024.
Kind
And
of
again,
shifted and
like the Machine Guns, she was anticipated for so long before we even saw her on TV. So Bianca's not my favorite person. I'm a big fan of Jade. Take the names out of the equation and put any two people in here, because they are not presented as, hey, these people are important, look at the titles that they have. They're presented as,
you're not wrong.
we've decided that these people are cornerstones of the show regardless, and they happen to have belts. Like, it's the opposite. Like, I don't think you need a title to make Bianca Belair. I'm not saying that.
No.
But she's not doing much. Like, she showed up at a pay-per-view where she got TV time because she was a host along with Jade and Naomi, and they didn't even have a match that night. They just sort of wore the belts out as trinkets, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do.
Yeah, they eventually lost the belts at Clash at the Castle to help me out here. You're
Illidan and Alba Fire, because
Alba
it was
Fire,
a hometown
yep.
thing.
Yeah, and
And again,
everything that she
it's
dealt
much
with,
like
her mom passing away and all that story,
Yeah.
part of it. So that was a great moment. But then
And
they
it's
didn't
much
do
like
anything
the
to follow
R-Truth
up with it at all. Like they just
It's much
lost
like the
belts.
R-Truth thing, and it's even more glaring that we gave you a hometown win, but Bianca and Jade fear it, run from it. They are inevitable. It's like somebody else holding.
They are inevitable.
Oh, I hate to make these types of conversations because we like John Cena these days, but it's like
For a
anybody.
long time, we didn't, and justifiably so.
But it's like anybody else holding a title other than John Cena in John Cena's time. It's like, well, yeah, but he's going to get it back eventually. Now imagine that times 2 in what is supposed to be a mid-card division.
Yeah, and Super Cena, we've seen it in other iterations with different people. Bianca kind of has that in spades at times, and that's one of the things that really bothered me. I used to scream about it on reviews. She loses at Mania, gets her ass kicked, comes out skipping and smiling, that kind of stuff. So,
But it's so annoying at the same time to have this, and like I say, like even my criticisms are going to come with positive stuff. because for them to have
Surprisingly.
for them to have such a grip on those belts at a time where they are focusing so much on teams and trios. Like we have Fatal Influence, we have like Shotzi returned and she's got her group together. You got Jakara and Lash Legend, you've got Illidan
Yep.
and Alba Fire, you've got Katana Chance and Caden Carter, you've got different iterations of Damage Control, different iterations of the Kentucky Fried Chicken conglomeration. But like
Finger licking good.
at the same time as they're not letting anybody touch those belts, they're reminding you constantly what a potentially rich women's tag team division they have.
Yeah, I kind of wish they just left him on NXT, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
Because NXT, they have so much talent, and they could actually make some really great tag teams out of women down there. Look at the team inadvertently created of Stephanie Vacour and Julia. That's a dream team that people have been wishing for years now, and then it happens, and it's like, oh my God, we've gotten spoiled in so many ways with these things. So, kind of you and I, funny enough, had the same idea, though.
I do think they have to be careful with that, though, because you get the same complaint that I have with Bianca Belair. Like, tag team wrestling is important. It's a vital component of wrestling, all those types of things, right? But it is supposed to be a mid-card division.
Yeah.
When you put people like Bianca Belair, multiple-time world champion, not multiple-time, but like WrestleMania main eventer, Royal Rumble winner, and all, when you
all these accolades, yeah,
it would be like, okay,
it's like, how can you expect them to lose, kind of thing. Yeah.
I'll use the example that everybody else uses because everybody likes to shit on Charlotte Flair. If we put the women's U.S. title on Charlotte Flair, does it even function as a mid-card title?
Yeah, because it's just another version of, she was the main champ for so long, so this is just another side version of that. Exactly, because what was the IC title? It was a stepping stone. You got that to get it on the way to the big belt. That was the purpose of it. U.S. title led to the IC title, which led to the WWE Championship.
And I'll say, like, let's take a look at the group that is the most up my street at the moment in NXT, and it's Tatum Paxley, who's awesome, Gigi Dolan, who's awesome, now being led by my girl Shotzi Blackheart, right? If they get their hands on those tag titles, it better be Gigi and Tatum, because I want Shotzi to be in line for that North American Championship, in line for that U.S. title or IC title.
Something bigger, yeah. They should be, as we said, building blocks and stepping stones. And you and I both had the ideas of basically the same idea. We want to see the tag team division be treated with a bit more reverence or respect and a bit of the tact that it deserves, because it is a unfortunate negative with things, and I understand there's only so much they can book, but you made a great point. I
just think it's a little bit, it's an equal and opposite problem to what you were talking about on Raw, because on Raw they kind of struggle to feature the other tag teams that don't immediately hold the tag titles. With the ladies across all three shows, they let you know constantly that division is competitive and rich and deep and all that, and then so they give you it all, like they hand it to you on a plate, kind of the opposite of the men on Raw, but they just remind you every now and then that they're there, but they're not going to get the belt. So
like a really good example of what you're saying always to me was like Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin working together. Baron Corbin was not a top level champion. He had some mid card titles, and he was a GM, but he was never at the very top. So him coming back to NXT and working with essentially their top guy at that point in time was a thing of beauty. They elevated each other.
And they found a really good chemistry that nobody else would have figured out. But my point of it is you mentioned Julia and Stephanie, who are brand new wrestlers to me, first of all.
Yeah.
And they're great, but they're clearly earmarked to be world champions on whatever show they're on. So it would be cool to see them as a tag team and win tag team gold, but it raises the, I don't know if raises the glass ceiling is the right expression, but it means that you have to be able to fight main eventers to get your mid-card steps in, which I don't think works as much.
And you made a great point, because I even argued before, like you said, with Charlotte as a mid-card champ, is that even the mid-card title, and does that give it instant amount of credibility and respect, or does it hinder it? Those are the type of things that they have to consider. But I do hope that they really follow through somewhat better with the women's titles. And talking about handling things better, my number 2 here is the handling of the Wyatt Six. And that's surprising coming from, Mr. Firefly here, but their debut was incredible. And I was very apprehensive about how they would be handled because we saw Bray make this triumphant return with the AR, alternate reality game, and they had all of the Follow the Rabbit QR codes and this little, filled with Easter eggs and old promos, all these great things. He had a triumphant return. Then all of a sudden he comes out, makes this great promo, and then nothing, and it dragged on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we never got any progression. Then we got the pitch black match, and that was it. So with these guys, I didn't want them to every week be out there for an hour and overexpose them. But I feel like they've also been like, all right, you're on the back burner now. You guys want to go out there for a big 6-man tag, cool, and then we won't see you for a couple of months. They had something. They had a very, very compelling, rooted in reality story. These people, especially Bo, lost his family. He lost both of his brothers, legitimately. One blood brother, but both of his brothers. And he didn't know how he could go on until he found these people to make a new family of sorts. And they're going to go ahead and take out anybody that doesn't appreciate their own family. Like, the story was simple yet, like a beautiful chaos. And
yeah, I think you've hit on one of the reasons that they were pulled back slightly, though, is because we know what the story is, and I don't think it's a bad thing. But they came in, and it was incredibly dark, and it was emotional for a lot of people, and it was really deep, and it was like, if you let yourself get into it, it's not for everybody. You and I talked about that early on. Yeah. Like, this kind of stuff's not for everybody, which is absolutely fine. But with it being so dark and sort of steeped in like memorial almost.
Yes.
I think they had to pull back on it a little bit because you don't want every time you see the Wyatts to get sad.
Yeah.
Like if that makes sense. I think they lightened it up.
Yeah.
I think they lightened it up a little bit. And the other thing is, once you take the masks off, once you shed the gimmick a little bit, which they do pretty successfully once the matches start, is these guys are really fun brawlers.
Yes.
Like, look at the size. Like, Gacy's crazy. Rowan is huge. Dexter's got his own type of vibe to him. Yeah, like
Dexter's really developed lately too. When you notice like his in-ring.
And he was already jacked, and he's twice as jacked now. He comes out with dreads, and he's doing the whole almost Manson-esque thing, right?
Looks crazy,
none of them, like even Bo. Like, remember when Bo was like the little skinny twerp that was one of the first NXT champions?
Yeah,
right. Look at him now.
Bo,
he's basically turned into Bray, kind of, which is there is a negative slant to that because eventually I would like to see him have a little bit of his own personality and not be doing an impression of his brother.
Exactly. We don't want you being your brother, but
again, I'm not going to tell him not.
No,
to
I appreciate the legacy that they're putting forth, and it's just that we went so many weeks where we would get like right off the bat we got that first VHS tape with Bo, the therapy session. That was incredible. That was like tear-jerking reaction, incredible.
But see, as effective as that was, I can understand them not wanting to lean on that all the time for the whole like you don't want to bum everybody out.
Exactly,
with the memorial, with the funeral aspect of it. Right?
They didn't have to always be negative though. There's a lot of stories they could tell without being. I think pulling back. So. I think pulling back on that stuff, and we've talked about it. We like everything from the Boogeyman to the Undertaker, right? Yes.
But if you're trying to please a broad audience, and yes, that's filler speak, but it's also true.
You can't call women broads. I keep telling you this. We're going to get in trouble.
Oh, say much worse things and get you in much more trouble. But I think pulling back on that a little bit, allowing them to have the cool entrance, and then just like Undertaker. Undertaker, when he came to the ring, he had the big, massive entrance, but then when he got to the ring, he was almost a boxer at some point.
Backed it up, and they've backed it up in the ring too, like you said. Great brawls and street fights.
Like I say, I want to see them mix it up with the Creeds. I want to see them mix it up with the Viking Raiders. I want to see them mix it up with a bunch of other big dudes. And I don't want it to be a totally gimmicky thing, because when they shed the gimmicks and they're just dudes, they have great matches. They have great entertaining, like, let's throw everything at the wall brawls.
Yeah.
and they're literally throwing each other at the opponents. So I think they might be retooling the presentation to match how fun the brawls are,
which is fine.
And if they're taking a pause to sort of retool that a little bit,
yeah.
and maybe the other thing that I said, and I say it's not for me to say, but to say who is who is Bo Dallas outside of channeling his brother.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of swinging room for that to take its time and be exactly what they want it to be.
Well, that's why I don't mind them.
We don't
not
see
being
them as
depressive,
much,
but
we don't see them as much. I would like to see them more.
That's my point.
But I don't think they need to be an every week or even every 2 weeks thing. Like if we see them, if we see them, like if you look at a schedule, like a work schedule almost, right? If we see them pick a fight with somebody on the 6th on Netflix, which is the date we're all going to land on for a while.
The 6th on the 6th.
Gotcha. They attack somebody on the 6th just to do the entrance for the first time on Netflix, do the whole spiel, right? They attack the Judgment Day or what's left of the Judgment Day.
Yeah, whatever.
And that's to lead to some multi-person match on the last show before the Rumble, which is going to be at the end of the month. Like, so you can do like a 4-week span, the initial attack, a couple of weeks of fuckery, and then the match. And that means you don't maybe necessarily see them fully in person from that week 1 to that week 4.
Yeah,
but when they land, when they ascend, it works. Like they've been fucking with Karrion Kross forever. It feels like.
Well, part of the thing that I'm upset though over, I guess, is one of the things we used to see a lot in the 2019 booking years with Vince. A lot of times, the best things were not on the show, and I feel like a good portion of the Wyatt Six things recently, some of the best stuff has not been on TV at all. Like Karrion Kross not looking for the Miz and their continued story, and especially on TV, we got no real story with the Final Testament at all. It was a little bit with the Miz, and then it just kind of shut off. So, like you said, it doesn't have to be a constant, and I don't always want to channel Bray either, but see him more.
You've brought up another point, and it's something that WWE has done, and it's another production thing that I think they've leaned into too much too fast, is do your show, do your 2 hours of programming, and then leave something for the people on Twitter to post, leave something for the people on Instagram to share the next day, leave something to be the WWE.com exclusive the next day. Like, good example is either KO attacking Cody at the bus or the package pile driver on Saturday night's main event. And I get why you don't put that on the show, because you want people to look for it, because you want people to think that their extra investment is going to be rewarded.
Yeah.
But to your point, and you're using the Wyatt Six and the Final Testament as a great example, how much of that is just like you're just leaving bits off your show now. I think they've got, as an engagement strategy, and I really sound like a businessman asshole saying that, but as an engagement strategy, I think it's brilliant, because people that do the extra work, make those 2 or 3 more extra clicks, are going to get that extra reward. They're going to receive more from their programming. Not everybody wants to do that, and not everybody has the time to do that.
No,
so
certainly.
you're playing a funny game there. And again, it's one of those things, we're happy that they're experimenting so much, but not every experiment is going to work. So I have to give them the patience to try something, knowing that it might fail, and then wait till it fails before we say, why the fuck did you do that?
Yeah, what the hell was that for?
So they're on a line right now. They're on the cusp of doing it too much, but I don't think they're there yet.
Sir, you're number 2 for worst.
Number 2, it's very simple, and it sort of ties into what I was just talking about. You and I have talked about it quite a bit, and I think we're kind of on opposite ends of this, so this is probably a good conversation to have. We used to complain about WWE pay-per-views. People still complain about AEW pay-per-views being way too long. Oh my God, why did the pay-per-view start in one day and end in another day?
Yeah.
Triple H took that criticism way too far. On my end of things, and I know it's different for everybody, the pay-per-views are way too short. And I don't just literally mean like what time it ticks on and what time it ticks off.
No.
What they're doing with it, you can do, like they're doing the 5-match pattern. I'm assuming it's going to be 4 for the Rumble, which is something that we're going to talk about tomorrow a bit more.
Yeah.
You can take that same time frame and put 6 matches in it or 7 matches in it. Not everything needs the time that it's being given. And you and I started midway through this year talking about, like, if they're going to be these short, concise pay-per-views, we're going to get a lot more critical of what is left over for SmackDown, what is left
because
for Raw.
they end up doing it
some
on Raw
stuff
and
there.
SmackDown. Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember what show it was, but basically we cut out the entire middle and said the matches from Raw and SmackDown could have gone in the I think it was, what was it? I'm not gonna remember.
Yeah.
I want to say it was Rumble, but that's too far back. But basically, like, the two big headlining matches were on either end, and the entire middle could have been scooped out, and the matches that had been put on Raw and SmackDown. And the thing is, I don't want to be that critical.
No,
just give me, instead of like picking two and leaving two off, give me those four and shave a couple minutes off every match. Maybe for the bigger pay-per-views, like, I'm sorry, WrestleMania should be more than 4 hours. It should.
And with doing the 2 nights, it's like, okay, well, then it's 8 hours, but and now we're gonna get 2-night Rumbles, 2-night SummerSlams, it seems like it's getting 2-night Survivor Series. We're gonna get 2 nights at everything. Eventually, WrestleMania is gonna be a month long. Yeah, and we'll get 1 match a day.
But it's a big swing. And Triple H, here's the thing: I'm the NXT guy. I'm also the Triple H guy. This is a thing that Triple H can't do that he did in NXT. NXT was one brand with only 3 titles at the time, with a very small, I don't want to say small, but like a very, very manageable roster.
It's much smaller than what they have now in NXT.
You're trying to manage 2 massive rosters with the caliber of talent that they have on that roster now, with the amount of stories. And I'll say this, look at what we have coming up on the Netflix debut with Roman and Solo that doesn't even have a title per se. Like,
you're right, because look at how many times we've seen things that should be on the card not make it there, and then the things on the card, don't, like you said, it has a bit of that older WrestleMania feel where you had to earn your spot. It wasn't, like you had to, it has a bit to that. It's like, all right, why is this here? But a lot of times, it's not what you want to see.
Well, it's not even necessarily what you don't want to see. Like, if there's a match on the card that I could sort of take or leave, like, hey, I can see there's 2 people there that are really, they've really busted their butt to get a shot, good for them, they made it onto the card. I don't want to be saying, why the fuck are they on this card?
Yeah.
I would much rather have the match that I want also on the card, so that I can
why don't you defend the Raw tag team titles instead of having Nia Jax and Bayley for the 3rd time? Those type of things. And it's like, so you're not wrong.
Or do both. Maybe add 20 minutes to the end of the actual card.
Yeah.
Shave both of those matches down by like 5. Maybe cut out a commercial or 2, which isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But but this is what I'm saying. Like, instead of saying, why is this here? I wanted this instead. Why don't you shave a little bit and give me both? I can get the thing that I wanted, and I'll go into this other thing that I wasn't necessarily thinking of with a much more open mind and a less critical mind at that point.
A lot of the people watching the Black and Gold were Triple H's, his fans, you know what I mean? And like the devout NXT followers were conditioned by him to enjoy the 5-match card formula because it worked. That was what was best for NXT. And then, like you said, he just transplanted that to the main roster, and it works in one regard because, like you said, you get in, you get out, you got your 5 matches. This is supposed to be what's the most important at the time, but typically it's only 2 matches that really feel like Bad Blood was a very good show. But everything in between...
I think it was Bad Blood, the one that I'm talking about now, where we could have scooped out the middle.
That's exactly what I was going to get to before and couldn't think of it. But because it was a really good show, but the main event, you got Cody in the tag match with Roman, and then you have the Hell in a Cell to open it. Everything else... Yeah. And it shouldn't be like that, so I agree with you with that being a negative, and I totally understand. My next negative, my number 1, sir, moving along here, is... the Usos Mania match. I went specific with this one because this hurt me deep inside. I totally agree with your plight and fight that Jay should have been the one to unseat Roman Reigns. Cody, the only story is that your dad got screwed out of the title, which is a great story to tell as a son.
Well, the story is he came back to WWE and he wants the belt, and Roman was the one holding it when he got there.
Yes. So
whatever else there is, they built after that.
It didn't matter who was holding it. It's just that he wanted the belt. It was about getting the belt, not beating Roman. So, yes, Cody's story was finished in that regard, and it was a great Mania moment. And that was one of, like, I still smile thinking of Cody winning. But that could have been done differently, like you said. They could have had the belt off of Roman at that point. None of that needed the title. You know what I mean? Like, Cody could have been going for the title, and Jay should have been fighting Roman Reigns. It all started with main event Jay, and the only reason he didn't beat Roman was because they used his brother against him, forcing Jay to say, "I quit." So when we got to this match, the palpitation, the expectations, the intensity was real. We had Lil Wayne bringing, I think it was Jimmy out, and you know, it was supposed to be this amazing culmination, and the story of these two facing each other anyways wasn't great. It was like, why did Jimmy turn? It wasn't a great explained turn. It didn't make a ton of sense why he betrayed his brother. And then the match itself was about 45 super kicks, and eventually it was over. Jay won. It felt very just lackluster and sloppy, and on everything else that we got from Mania that was so stellar and top notch, this really, really was a huge letdown. Think about Bret Hart and Owen Hart, like brothers, Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy from Mania 25, the first one from Mania 10. Like, these things that it's supposed to be like, oh my God, this should have been Tribal Chief Warfare. They shouldn't have had the match. It just should have been the spear off the stage to keep Jimmy out, if that's my take. But yeah, this was the most disappointing thing this year for me with how, and they've separated the Usos. I'll give them credit. You know who Jimmy is. You know who Jay is now. People are not going to get that confused.
And they both have better characters now. Like, everybody, like, Jay's getting his flowers on Raw a lot. I think it's going a little bit under the radar that Jimmy's sort of, he's found a different niche. I don't know how to I couldn't describe to you what Jimmy is right now, but what Jimmy is Jimmying right now. And there was no Jimmying before. It was just, oh, I'm Roman's sidekick. Oh, I'm Jay's brother, whatever. He's got a niche now. I just don't know how to describe what it is. Now, you know, and you're pulling out a really unfair card on me, being that I'm a Hardy fan and all. For everything that I love that the Hardys did, I never got properly fulfilled seeing Jeff and Matt fight each other. I always thought it was going to be great, and it always went down. Now, Brett and Owen, that's a different conversation. You got two technical marvels in the ring. One of them a little bit more underappreciated than the other.
That was about a wrestling match. These two were supposed to be like, you killed my dog, you burnt my house down, you tried to destroy me in Pyro, and it never really... It was good, but...
They never had any feud with each other as well as either one of them did. Like... Would you rather see Jeff fight Matt, or would you rather see Jeff fight Edge, or Jeff fight Punk? Or when Matt had his sort of weird comedic rivalry with MVP and all that kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
When Matt was tagging with Bray, as we mentioned earlier. But here's my thing, and here's one of those times where I'm going to get called, "Oh, you're way too soft on WWE," whatever. I don't disagree with what you said about Jay and Jimmy at WrestleMania. I don't think the match was anything blow away stellar or whatever. I also couldn't care less, because anything with the bloodline was story, and Jay more than Jimmy at the time was throwing 110% character-wise into everything he was doing, and that was a showcase. And
I think that's partly why I was disappointed, because I know we could have. They cut a lot of time from their match, and they cut parts. I guess.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they cut time, and then Rikishi was supposed to come out, I guess, at one point too, and that got scrapped. So
my thing is it's one of those things. You've heard me use this example 100 times. Is it a great match? No, but John Cena and The Miz facing each other at WrestleMania with their respective partners at the time. We didn't know what Nikki Bella was going to become. Was it a great match? No. Was it fun? Yes. Are we happy for them that they're apparently buddies and they got to have a fun match with their partners at WrestleMania? Forever and a day, we heard the Usos say they wanted to face each other at WrestleMania. Yeah. It's really cool to, maybe not in the match itself, but to get to that level together, to reach that level together, to be able to have that moment with each other. I was way too happy for them and way too into the story at the time to care that it wasn't 5 stars in the Tokyo Dome. I'm not saying that it was by any stretch, but my big takeaway from that was, and where the negative would be for me in that match, was I couldn't take it 100% seriously because I knew whatever happened in that match, they were going to get absorbed back into the Roman and Rock and Cody stuff by the end of the night. Anyway, so it felt like an afterthought in that regard.
I found the quote too. Jey Uso said it with an interview with Gorilla Position. Someone came up to us and said they went over this many minutes. I'm sorry, y'all. It's good. Just go out there and handle your business. And then he said that it was unfortunate because the things that were cut were supposed to be more of the storytelling elements of the match, like the father coming out, So it wasn't like you said.
I didn't know that.
I didn't care about the 5 stars in the Tokyo Dome, but I do give a shit that it didn't have that payoffs. Really, it didn't feel like Jay really got the ultimate vengeance upon his brother that he was trying to enact. It was just like, all right, you pinned him, now what? It's over. Yeah. And it was nothing but super kicks. So,
I'll say if there was supposed to be extra stuff that they didn't get to do, I'll put a thumbs down on that for sure.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, and maybe it is a free pass, but it's just like they've really wanted to do this for a long time. They got there, they got to do it. I'm happy for them.
Absolutely.
So I wasn't pulling it in the same. It's like Roman and Cody, Cody finishing the story. That match was a carnival. That match was not a.
It was throw everything in the kitchen sink. It was
literally throw everything in the kitchen sink. Like this, it was a match for as long as it was a match, and then it was a giant segment.
Yes, it was just a huge
fine.
Story.
Which is fine, by the way. Which is absolutely fine. I'm all for the segments. Give me the stories. Give me everything ridiculous that wrestling can be, right?
Exactly.
But it wasn't, like, the parts that everybody loved. It wasn't a match. It was Triple H is taking charge of WWE. WrestleMania is now 2 nights. We're heading down these paths. We're an international company now. We're going to come at you lock, stock, and barrel. We're about to go to Netflix. Rah, rah, rah. Here we are. We're throwing our dick on the table.
Yeah, we've got everything out.
That's what that main event was. I'm happy for Cody. I wasn't even a Cody guy. You were here. We talked about it when I said, okay, I can't deny Cody anymore. Yeah, like it's all good. Doesn't change the fact that Jay should have been the one to topple Roman. On the night, everybody was a Cody guy. I think I said it to you that night.
Oh, yeah. Everybody was a Cody fan.
But if people want to, and I'm not directing this at you, but if people want to say, like, they come down on the Jimmy and Jay thing a lot. And I will say the Jimmy and Jay match was more of a match in its strictest terms than Roman and Cody was. Now, that's coming from me. That's giving them a whole lot of free passes and throwing a lot of my own sarcasm in there. I get where you're coming from. If you're looking at it from a match perspective, I didn't know that stuff had been taken out. I'm just the goofy guy in the back that's happy for these guys that finally got to fight each other.
Well, what was your number one then, Spaz, as far as your top worst?
My number, and it's not even a top worst. It's I'm going to compliment somebody else by not being so nice over here. The ladies of NXT are pretty awesome, right?
Absolutely.
They've taken a lot of main events, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk more about that in a second for sure. By comparison, the men's side of things on NXT has, I want to say this as nicely as possible, the men's division on NXT has taken a back seat this year.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, oh my God, how dare the women. I'm saying, guys, keep your head above water.
Yeah, because they got tricked with the title after him and Carmelo had their big breakup, feud, stand and deliver, all that, which was great. Then, oh crap, we really don't have anybody for Trick to face. There was no one ready made because we had been building so many challengers for the women's title for Roxanne over here. On the men's side, it was like, so then they got lucky. They got a lifeline because Ethan Page left AEW.
Yep.
And in a month's time, a little over 40 days, he became champ. He kind of like revitalized his career and really gave a shot into the men's side of the division of NXT. Mm-hmm. So, but Trick gets the title back, and it's just kind of been like going through the motions, like you said. No, you're not at a challenger that's at a level where it's like, oh, I can totally suspend disbelief that they're going to take the title. You're absolutely right. There has not been a focus on now. They're doing it with Eddie, but that really wasn't
They've got some
built
cool stuff
for
going
him.
on with Eddie. They've got this weird sort of lost his smile thing that they're doing with Paige.
Yeah.
They have a absolutely crackerjack star in waiting with Javon Evans and Obafemi in two very, very different ways. But they're trying to pick up their pants at the end of the game here at the end of December, because it's been the other part of it too.
Because we'll get Obafemi and Trick, and that's a great match, but by the time that happens, we're on to the next year. So as far as this year goes,
but I'm predicting that's Trick's farewell to go to the main roster, and happy for that guy.
Yeah,
I think it's a little overdue. Honestly,
he's been in NXT for quite a while.
I thought he was going to follow Carmelo up, and Carmelo's gotten himself into some different stuff as well. But if it is his farewell and he passes the torch on to Oba, who does Oba really have to challenge him except for Eddie Thorpe, who I'm pretty sure is going to get killed?
Yeah. Eddie is kind of not as severe of a Jinder Mahal, but he was someone that really wasn't a factor in anything and then just gets thrown into a main event match.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the story elements there, and he had one of the best conclusions to screw over the incompetent GM that is Ava. And I kind of like that story where, like, you could tell she's actively trying, she's doing her best, but she's just not knowledgeable enough to see what's coming her way, and she gets taken advantage of often, and she's not always the most organized or well-intentioned, but she at least has her attempts to be made. So I like that Eddie got one over on her.
The other thing is,
I kicked my own ass.
The other thing is too, as well, is two of the coolest sort of infusions, I guess you could say, on the men's side of thing this year have both been as a result of the TNA partnership, which again we're going to talk about in a minute. But the infusion of Joe Hendry at one point was really exciting. Joe Hendry was really over. He was reaching his sort of
incredible. Loved it.
His trending peak. And the other was we brought back the Rascals so that we could do some MSK stuff, so that MSK could break up, so that the Rascals could go back to TNA. So those were two really good, like, I guess if you want to say, like, spikes in the year.
Yeah.
But they were both temporary.
And they were both injections from another company, essentially. Like that.
Well, they are, but like that partnership is ongoing as far as we know. But those particular stories sort of happened, and then they quickly burnt out.
Yeah, because Joe Hendry was a huge deal, and then he just wasn't on, and same thing going forward. Yeah.
To the point where every time I see Wes Lee now, I think Trey Miguel is going to get his comeuppance, because he never got his comeuppance. Only Wentz did. Wentz got the X Division title for a night so that he could wear it on a NXT show, and
no doubt.
And then it feels like it was like it happened and it dropped like a rock.
Yeah.
So those were two really cool spikes, not only because of the individual people involved, but also because of like what it meant at the time.
Absolutely.
But they were both very temporary, whereas the bigger stories in the ladies division have been more ongoing. Like, look at how stacked our roster is, etc.
No, and you're absolutely right. That's a great point. That they're really, Joe Hendry, again, they got lucky. He came from TNA. Yes, it's their partnership, but that was a good, person to defend the title against with Paige, and it kind of helped Trick be busy in the meantime. So
it seems we're bringing, and I know it's another Band-Aid, but it seems that they're teasing Penta for Raw with the zero symbols that are showing up on Raw.
Yes.
I don't think I don't think it would hurt to throw Penta down there for, like, I don't know, not a long stretch, but like maybe for a quarter.
Yeah, until his brother's ready, then they can come up together like they were planned, because they were supposed to win the tag titles in the Motor City Machine Gun victory.
Spot.
Yeah, that was supposed to be theirs. That was the report. Whether it was or wasn't still, but
so I wonder if
that's what it was originally said to have been the plan.
I wonder if the Motor City Machine, or if the Lucha Brothers had come in properly, and if TK wasn't a fuckwad, would we have gotten Motor City Machine Guns in NXT?
Possibly.
Would they be over on Raw mixing things up and potentially having that match that I want with Finn and JD? But
they could have taken those titles while everything else happened on SmackDown. Yeah, that would have been great. Well, sir, we're going to get right into it. Our top 3 favorite of the year. I don't want to keep you here all night, so I will go into mine quickly here. My top number 3, simply stated, defined character roles. I know
Boom.
this is a bit more less specific than my other points have been, but the heel-face dynamic has defied expectations that I have had built for quite some time, and I am all about it. DIY, you get Ciampa saying, you're going to do things my way, and you're like, oh, damn it, they're going to split. Ciampa's turning heel? Nope. Johnny's sick of it, too. And same thing with the New Day. Oh, look at that. Xavier's going to turn heel. They're going to split. No, instead they had one of the best. The New Day had the best segment on Raw for like 3 weeks running. The fight they had backstage before the anniversary show, and then where the crowd tore them apart in Connecticut and Bridgeport. Like all of it together was great, and I'm telling you, like that was so special.
The night they turned on Big E has got to be top 3 moments for the year, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I put it in the the moving card. But I was just blown away with that because it defied expectations and it makes sense. The characters, with their defined roles, the heels aren't being cheered because they're cool. So people will like the heels, no doubt. Somebody likes Solo and Jacob, but they're not cool, good guys. They're not, in the sense of like, it's not like, oh, I want to be the bad guy. No, they're heels. They're doing shit to get heat, and they're trying to piss you off so they can win by any means. And you see the faces do not act like do-gooding morons. They're not 1930s Superman, truth, justice, the American way. I get so pissed when you see a babyface go into a 1-on-5 scenario. We saw the Death Riders, all of them in the ring versus a one Orange Cassidy. No, stay in back. I want to get my teeth knocked down my throat. Just the other day, we saw Cody take advantage of Kevin Owens bringing the chair in the ring. He does the crossroads onto it. So now that story gets
not only that, and this is the key point as far as giving Cody credit.
Yeah.
It was probably What Culture I was listening to, but they really, really drilled home on it, is because anything can happen accidentally. If you're a babyface and you go to do your move and, oh shit, there's a chair in the ring because somebody brought a chair in the ring, that's not a thing of intent. But the fact that he did it, looked around for the referee and made the intentional thing to like scoot the chair,
did the adjustment,
is like, I don't quite care that I'm doing the bad thing.
Because
it's a more nuanced John Cena is the best compliment I can give Cody Rhodes at this time. We did a comparison earlier this week.
Like an onion, you got to have those layers, and I just
like an ogre.
Like an ogre. I just love
ogres
having,
are like onions.
I love having all of it, because it's just the way the story's throughput, and you have certain, like Drew's a bad guy, but he makes sense. So you don't want to, you don't necessarily want to side with him, but it's not fully humanizing him. But I
think the better example, because Drew's done heel stuff, right?
Yes.
I think the better example of sort of like, I don't know whether you want to call it like the tortured middle.
Yes.
Because Drew's turned it into action, and his actions have definitely made him a heel. He's bloodied up CM Punk more than once and all that kind of thing. I think the better example right now is Seth Rollins. And for somebody who presents himself as so goofy most of the time and still manages to get things across like in a way that makes sense and isn't goofy at all, like he knows what he's saying, and you can listen to what he's saying, you can believe what he's saying, and you can believe that he's as upset and sees Punk as the bad thing that he is, because Punk's not squeaky clean.
No.
So you believe Punk because Punk's just like he's doing the Jey Uso thing. I'm just trying to be back and be better.
Yeah, and you saw the interaction between Drew and Seth and what that builds and the way they play off of it. Because that's a great point.
But here's the thing. Like bad guy, good guy is a left and right thing, right?
Yes.
But if I show you a CM Punk that's just trying to do better, be better now that he's in a better place, that I can believe. Seth Rollins comes around with all these reasons why we shouldn't believe him, and I can believe him.
Yes.
And then Sami Zayn comes along to Seth Rollins and says, hey man, no, it's, I get where you're coming from, but it's different, and da-da-da, and you believe it because it's Sami Zayn and he's good like that. But it's like, there's 3 different sides.
And they're adding perspective to each, so context matters.
How do you see which one's good? Because Sami also on the other side of the coin has his friend Kevin Owens, who's slid down the backside of Cody Rhodes and wants CM Punk at some point. There's 7 sides, and nobody's the clear-cut heel and babyface.
Same thing with Kevin Owens, and that's what I love about it, because he's justified. How dare you work with Roman? He tried to kill me. He threw me off a stage. He hit me with a golf cart. All these things, and it's like, yeah, he's right.
But he's gone over that Drew side to the
pile drivers, the stealing.
No,
the belt.
not even that, because like the delusional side comes in where it's like, I can't believe you did that. And it's based on my own experiences in Roddy Raw. Where you cross over that line is, I can't believe you did that, and I think I'm in a position to tell you that you shouldn't.
Yeah, that's
like
true
that's
too.
where Kevin is before he drops anybody on their head, before he does anything, before he walks around with the fucking beautiful. Can we talk about the Winged Eagle title belt for a second? And if he's gonna walk around with the
so good.
If he's gonna walk around and do the real world champion thing, but do it properly, that's fun. And then if they have a ladder match and he wins it and he declares that is the new title / old title,
not only does something really special.
Not only does he bring back, because there's a layer to this too. Not only does he bring back the Winged Eagle, which everybody likes, which will put everybody on his side, even though he's the bad guy, but what he does is he gets to look at Cody Rhodes, who brought back the old Intercontinental title way back in the day, and say, look, I did what you did, but I did it bigger and better.
Exactly. That's a damn good point. See? That's why I don't pay you the big bucks. You're number 3, sir, please.
My number 3,
top
really,
of the year. Really
simple. But now that we've got the tag situation out of the way, is everything else to do with the women's division. Everything.
Yeah. It's just been
everything
on
stars on every level.
Yeah, even on SmackDown, people. Nia has worked. She's not my favorite. I obviously have my issues with her, but you know what? So many people gave her hell about the awful looking chair shots, and I kind of can defend her, because Naomi was not in the right position and then moved, so that's why she was like, no, bitch. So she kind of had to like stop, then swing again.
I'll give you one better. Somebody like Nia Jax, as they're presenting Nia Jax right now. I'm not the biggest Nia Jax person, but her presentation recently has been fantastic. Somebody like Nia Jax, and Piper Niven to a lesser extent as well.
Yeah.
But like, they would be so used to the fact that their body is a weapon that them having to actually pick up a weapon would seem out of place to them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I said it on one of your streams a while ago. I can't stand when they want to prove how strong somebody is, like a Bianca Belair, just as an example.
Yeah.
They have them either pick up Nia Jax or they have them pick up Piper Niven, which is cool. Like, logically it makes sense. But what you're doing is, can you believe they picked up this girl? She's the fat girl on the roster.
She's the greatest because she's big, right? Yeah. No.
But if you use because you're no longer using them as an opponent at that point, you're saying this person is strong. Look at the weight they picked up. So what you're saying is, don't look at Nia and see a contender. Don't look at Piper Niven and see a contender. See them as a large weight.
Yeah, they're both,
which is fucking terrible. And I don't want to be saying that woke ass shit, but it's true.
But it is true. And it's just like, oh yeah, it's only because of their
so
size.
much, and she's your champion.
Exactly. Rather than come at them and be like, oh, they're lethal. They're a true contender. Absolutely. But no, you're right. So everything in the women's division has just been top notch. I mean, obviously, Liv and Rhea, some of Liv's motivations, I wish they did things a little bit different with her and Dom, but still, a lot of people are tired of it. I'm still okay. I want to see this continue. I want to see Rhea totally destroy everything of Liv's. I'm still invested, but I like how there's more than just that going on. You've seen, oh my God, I can't think of her name now. It'll come back to me in a minute. She was with Andrade. Zelina Vega, when she's been taking on the Pure Fusion Collective and things like that, and it's like, oh, her arm got broken, so she had to get help from Caden Carter and Katana Chance and Lyra, and people were still doing things and developing and going. And then of course NXT, they managed to take 3 massive, huge debuts and keep them all on the same level and not manage to have any of each other's be overshadowed in any such way. Zarya is incredible so far. I loved what they did. Her and Soul were a really fun tag team.
I'm glad you touched on it, because it would have been really easy and really tempting from a storytelling perspective to keep the 3 new people together.
Yeah.
I like that they're not doing that.
No.
You see Stephanie Vacour is sort of buddying up with Kalani Jordan. a little bit, so you figure she's going to be in the North American title picture.
Yep.
You see Zarya buddying up with Sol Ruka. Even if they never say it on TV, you can imagine there's like an implied like mentor-student relationship to a certain degree, and they're both athletic as hell.
Exactly.
Julia sticking more to herself because she's going to be the one to dethrone Roxanne, because Roxanne's going to go up to the main roster shortly, which is way overdue. I just think it's cool that they resisted the urge, like we were talking about earlier. Oh, Julia and Stephanie came in at the same time. Let's just make them a tag team for a bit.
Keep them.
But like, no, you're entrenching them with the roster, and NXT created a mid-card championship, which proved that you can make a mid-card championship. And finally, the main roster caught up to the gimmick.
Yeah, exactly.
Chelsea Green, I'm sorry, I don't care how much they try to tell you that she's a heel. I am happy for everything that girl does.
I can't wait for her eventual face turn, because she's so Chelsea Green, and she's so over at this point for a very great reason. Her wrestling is good. It's not great. Yeah. It's good. It's
she's
like,
character, though.
It's really good. Her character is
she's
top notch.
She's
so
the
dedicated.
Miz.
Yes.
She is the Miz of the women's division, and I say that. People that out there that don't like The Miz, please understand I'm saying that as the highest compliment, because The Miz is one of those guys on the borderline of a Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth, who is awesome and does anything you ask him to do and never really gets the credit for it.
No, yeah, and she, look at the dumpster match, and I like the story they told there, because Mia Yim beat her in the dumpster match. Mm-hmm. Now she beats her here for the title and to be the inaugural champion. The crowd erupted. That was pretty much basically pop of the night.
Oh yeah.
You know? So I'm thrilled that she's getting her flowers there.
We didn't really talk about Saturday night's main event. You and Liz did a great job with that. But let's just be real for a second. It was the only real piece of news from the night. Everybody else retained. Drew beat Sammy.
Yep. Everything was straightforward. You expected Chelsea to win, but it wasn't a foregone conclusion. So that was really the only match that would be newsworthy.
And I like... And you kind of have to pair it up with the Friday the night before, because that's when they did the semifinals. But I like that they resisted the urge to think, oh, even if she doesn't win, we should put Bayley in the final because that'll get more attention on it. It like totally defeats the purpose. It's like my Charlotte example from earlier. Mia Yim, I don't like the name Michin, but that's...
I don't either. It kills me.
I didn't think that she was going to win, but I was really happy for her to be in that spot because once we establish the title, she's the type of person that should be going for that title. If Shotzi didn't come back on NXT, I would want her in that spot. I don't really...
But her being there didn't feel like an egregious insult. It wasn't like, oh, God, if Mia Yim wins, what the frick are they doing? How could they? You know Chelsea.
Well,
no,
yeah,
it wasn't 100%.
They had a good match. The crowd seemed like they were really into it. I was watching it super late in the evening. But... and she wasn't like she did. Like the best I can say is she wasn't there to be designated jobber.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that, like you said, for your number two, number three, excuse me, I'm all about it as well. It just makes a great deal of sense.
There's a whole lot more women on that roster. I'm looking at somebody like a Candice LeRae as well. I mean, Tiffany Stratton has the Money in the Bank. I thought it would have been really cool if she cashed in to become the U.S. champion. I think it'll be cool if she cashes in on Monday Night Raw to become the IC champion.
She still can, yeah.
A whole lot of story to happen there. But like, Indy Hartwell's not in the company anymore, but you got to imagine somebody like an Indy Hartwell, a Candice LeRae, a Mi Chin, Chelsea Green, Zelina Vega, Lyra Valkyria, all the other women that have sort of been pushed into tag teams because there was no mid-card championship, like Zoe Stark, Sonya Deville. I wouldn't say Shayna Baszler because I want to see her higher, but
still, she would be a good one because I could see her being a good mid-card champion, that's for sure.
I was going to say, switching over to Raw now, but like, the Intercontinental Championship in its purest form, in its highest regard, was the workhorse championship. So why wouldn't you put it on somebody like a Shayna Baszler?
Like we said before, a perfect stepping stone. I couldn't agree more, my friend. Moving on, number two for my favorites of the year.
Sure.
It's the WrestleMania 40 press conference. So, granted, the night after Mania...
Oh, the early one where they set up the thing.
The initial one where The Rock came out and he had his bloodline tree, and then Cody said, no, fuck this shit, I'm challenging Roman, because it was SmackDown, but a few days before, where Cody came out and
sold out an arena for a press conference.
Yes, and fans were irate. People were pissed. And we heard Cody on that Monday. You don't know how much I needed you all this past weekend. And we didn't know, but that was the truth because they told him, hey, your Mania spot is gone. It's going to be Rock and Roman. And your Rumble win is null and void. We're going to, so he went out on SmackDown and said, I choose you, but not yet. And he gave up his spot to The Rock. And the wrestling world was not having it. And I love the way that we saw how can Triple H pivot. So The Rock came in, pushed for himself to be champion, to be at Mania, to be in the main event. And they clearly had another vision, a story that needed to be told. And what they got of it, The Rock still pinned Cody Rhodes. He's a victor, He's got a victory over Cody that's massive. And he's still got his People's title. But this press conference saved Mania in my eyes. It made the excitement go to another level. You saw things being handled, being booked, and Seth and Drew in certain aspects, and you're like, yeah, this is good. But when we finally knew that, hey, we're going to get 2 matches out of this. We're going to get a tag team match, and then we're going to get bloodline rules the next night if they lose. I like that there's stakes. I like that Seth is fighting twice now with Drew. It reinvigorated my love for WrestleMania because it showed that, hey, they can pivot when a story isn't working and make a change and course correct. As where Vince proved so many times before that not a chance in hell. He has a vision. He's going to stick with it. And then the fans have to hijack the show. So
Liz in the chat saying that Io Sky may win the Intercontinental Championship because she was swapped out for Kairi Sane is a great shout. Io Sky needs a platform. Like, I'm not saying that she needs to leave Damage Control, but as far as presentation, she needs a platform of her own.
And she's had the women's title, but this would feel like a really big deal because she's still, even though she has been a women's champ, I still don't quite view her in that upper echelon. Ability-wise, she has it.
Oh, of course. Ability-wise, she's probably higher than some of the people in that upper echelon.
Her and her trash can, absolutely.
Oh, my God. The moonsault with the trash can, man.
That was incredible. So, yeah, the WrestleMania press conference, just simple, straightforward. But when I think back to things this year, when I ever saw Cody say to The Rock, like, no, you go get him, champ, and it was so depressing and heartbreaking, and it was like, no, they're going back to the old ways again. Triple H is being, bamboozled by a Hollywood star that they're putting more faith into. And luckily, I got to go ahead and, bite my tongue on that one. So I'm happy to admit I was wrong, thankfully. And they gave us one hell of a surprise. And like you said before, it wasn't even a match that night. It was a spectacle with everyone coming out, Cena and The Undertaker, and, they even Seth returning as the Shield. Everything they did just continually
shout out to Seth, who was absolutely holding himself together with tape by the end of that night as well.
Yes, I've torn my knee apart. I know how that feels. I don't know how he wrestled both nights, never mind just one of them. Incredible.
Was anything leading up into WrestleMania, and I don't want to stray into hyperbole here, it's beyond me to do something like that, of course.
Not you. Not your bucket list. Check that off.
Was anything more fantasy booked than that main event?
Oh, absolutely not. And
everything from every direction. Everybody brought in, it could be this, it could be that. They could do this, they could do that. Like between the tag and on the first night and
both main events, the 2 biggest stars. Oh, now they're going to tag team and, like you said, just total.
Is Rock going to turn on Roman? Is Roman going to turn on The Rock? Is Seth Rollins going to side with Roman and turn on Cody? Are they going to have a feud? The thing about that is, though, and this is where WWE, I use this expression a lot, but because they've got so much to play with right now, and they are so able to throw their dick up on the table and be like, yeah, we're going to do everything. Because we fantasy booked the fuck out of that tag match. We fantasy booked the fuck out of that singles match, the main events of the 2 nights. But what you didn't see coming was the other booking thing that happened that was amazing, and that was the entire opening segment of night 2. Drew beats Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins passes him the torch with CM Punk on commentary. He's so distracted by CM Punk on commentary that CM Punk fucks him up after the match, leading to Damian Priest's cashing in, and an amazing moment for Damian Priest that we didn't see coming. An amazing comeuppance for CM Punk that we kind of thought was coming. An amazing moment taken away from Drew, and a great send off for Seth Rollins, who we all knew was falling apart.
Absolutely.
consider how much we were fantasy booking that main event, and then they started night 2 with this.
Yeah,
and it gave you
right into it. Yeah.
And it gave you that holy fuck, where are we going from here jumpstart.
Exactly. It was I don't want to say overbooked, but in that sense, you know, it was like, oh my god, overloading with emotion, because it just kept building upon itself, and that's one of the things I've been so just impressed.
And the irony of the only other person that had ever done that was Seth Rollins himself, and Seth Rollins was the one that had just lost the belt to Drew.
Exactly. So
and
storytelling upon storytelling.
Judgment Day at their peak, like the peak before the fall, but still the peak. CM Punk being a big impact on WrestleMania when he couldn't even technically participate.
Yeah.
I mean, the other side of that is we got CM Punk on commentary, which is also fantastic.
Which was, a highlight. Absolutely.
It's cool shit like this that makes you say, like, later on in the night when something sillier happens, or something just, it's not the greatest, but it's a feel-good thing, like Miz and Truth that we were talking about earlier.
Their tag wins.
Yeah, but, like, think about what happened at the beginning of the night, and think about, oh my god, what's going to happen later? If that's how the night started, what's the end going to look like? And then you've got some filler, but even it
felt like WrestleMania, and it felt like WrestleMania for a reason.
Yeah, to my point about, like, let's make the pay-per-views longer, like a simple, silly, feel-good moment on a short show would get criticism from me, because why is this here instead of something else? But look how much you're giving me. This little silly thing on the side, I can just wave it off and say, good for Truth, and get on with the night. Whereas going back to my point about the pay-per-views being too small now, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a nice thing, but, you know, you pushed Carmelo Andrade, match 21 of 21 off the card. And I was really looking forward to that, because it was going to be an exploding barbed wire death match done properly.
Yeah, done properly is the key.
I'm an asshole. Well, not
so you're number 2, sir. Go ahead.
My number 2, sort of an umbrella thing. Expansion of their talent in every direction.
I love it.
So you've got everybody on Raw, you got everybody on SmackDown, you got everybody on NXT. You've got it to a point now where all 3 of the shows can be kind of fluid with talent without totally breaking the draft. You've got part-timers that are slipping in and out because people are getting the time off that they need now. Seth Rollins can leave for a while and CM Punk can fill the void. Drew can go away for a while. And, Cody can fill the void. Like, there's a lot more flexibility that way. So everybody gets a chance to feel new all the time. And then you get an actual part-timer like a Goldberg, or if Lesnar comes back, and all that kind of stuff. And then you get into partnerships. Obviously, I'm going to lean on TNA, because that's the one I'm most familiar with. The constant back and forth with TNA, I think is fantastic, and I think it's doing good things for TNA as well. We're going to talk about that more tomorrow night. But also, like, even like they're branching off into companies that I don't watch, and it's like, oh well, why would you care? Because you're not going to watch MLW or Noah or whatever. No. But it's still cool that they're doing it.
Yeah, I love that they're available to be elsewhere. They're not trapped.
What's his name? Josh Briggs went on excursion to Noah, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe that's what it was, yeah.
And he came back with the fella whose name I can't pronounce, who's now on excursion to NXT.
Yeah, so it's
like,
just
how cool is that you've got somebody actually on excursion to NXT who's created a tag team because of this time that Briggs spent out there. But also, who else went? Nakamura went, and he was part of the Great Muta sent off. AJ Styles wasn't being used. He went over to Noah. Countless people from all 3 companies seem to be merging at Bloodsport.
Yeah, going around all over. So, but yeah, Jericho can be at GCW. That makes sense, right?
Now add to that we had the NIL program on one side of the coin with their recruitment, and it was, we're gonna take gymnasts and football players and weightlifters,
athletes,
and bodybuilders, all this kind of thing, and then they countered that this year with WWE ID, which is going to be saying, no, we're not going to take people from other sports. We know that there's a thriving indie scene out there, and we're going to take talent from that pool because it's the WWE and a lot of people want to be there, but also we're going to be fostering in those areas. Like,
it's such a great way for them to foster talent without having a full-time commitment. All they have to do is say, hey, we're interested in you for the future. You're earmarked for bigger things. Keep doing what you're doing, and you'll get that call. It's a great idea, but it also keeps talent from going elsewhere, too. So
in the meantime, you're also putting a focus on that person that's not even in your company yet. And I mean, sort of secondhand, but you're also putting spotlight on these other companies because they have WWE ID certified companies and training places and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a label. Yeah, it's just a piece of paper that you hang on your door. But I'm sorry, that means something to people. It does bring prestige. It does bring,
well, people aren't going to know,
notoriety.
that Spaz is wrestling at Jake's Independence. But now that you have a WWE ID contract, I've been watching you on Twitter. I've been following your YouTube. I've been looking, I'm following your Instagram, that type of thing. It builds a social following. It gives you some cred.
But if I'm a WWE ID talent and I'm still like independent, I'm doing my own thing to the point where, yes, they're even free to go work for AEW. Maybe, AEW could not be so stingy, but like I could go work at X, Y, and Z place while they're putting a focus on me. But if they're putting a focus on me and I go and I wrestle a match at your Fed, that does put a spotlight on your Fed as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I mention Destiny all the time. Check it off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list. It's fine. What got me to go to Destiny for the first time was because two WWE guys were fighting. It was Pete Dunne and John Morrison. But
what a classic.
It was a champion. Pete Dunne was their champion at the time, and John Morrison was challenging for it. It was actually a really fun Clash of Styles type match. But what happened? Pete Dunne, John Morrison got me in the door, and then who did I meet and get to chat with? People like Jade Chung, Josh Alexander, Aiden Prince, El Diablo, Gabriel Fuerza, Alexia Nicole, Vaughn Vertigo. I met Simon fucking Miller.
Yes, that was awesome too, no doubt.
But here's the thing, but everybody needs a gateway, right? So me as a fan, I went to see some WWE guys and saw some new talent, right? If WWE ID followers on Twitter are following me and I come to your Fed, somebody's going to look at your Fed.
Exactly.
Like, it helps everybody. WWE is just going to soak up all the talent. Yeah, but everybody's going to benefit. Everybody comes to the table, everybody eats.
Exactly.
Not everybody eats a steak. Some people eat a salad, but it is what it is.
Hey, it doesn't matter. You're getting fed. You're no longer hungry.
We should rename the show "We Are Well Fed," pun intended. But I think like WWE ID on one side of the recruiting platform and the NIL on the other side of the platform. Let's take people that have been wrestling for a while and give them a platform, or let's take people that have awesome other gifts to give. Because if you got somebody that's done weight training or football or whatever, they may have a workout regiment that nobody's ever heard of that ends up helping everybody in the PC.
Yeah,
just because you grabbed them from somewhere else. It's like, oh my God, Julia's so great. Why would you bring her down to developmental? Well, maybe she's going to help people develop.
Maybe, just maybe she's going to go ahead and...
But as I say, now on top of that, you're swapping talent back and forth with Noah. You're swapping people back and forth with TNA. You're swapping people back and forth with Bloodsport, where Bloodsport is the only place where you can have, like, what did we have? We had Shayna Baszler versus Masha Slamovich.
Yep.
I watched the fuck out of that.
Exactly.
And what did that get me to do? That got me to watch Bloodsport that I'd never seen before because two people from two other companies were fighting there.
And it worked, and that was it. It worked. And, I go through time and time again, but you're absolutely right. It worked. That's what it came down to. It all just mattered. Every bit of it mattered. So I totally
you got the
agree
talent.
with you.
That's what I'm saying. We got the talent you've got now. You got the talent you've got sometimes. You've got the talent that you've got coming up. You've got the talent that's coming from the left. You got the talent that's coming from the right.
That's what I'm saying. It all matters.
Visiting, yeah.
Because everyone's building to something,
Yep.
And the indies are building to, the Performance Center, which builds to NXT, which builds to the main roster. Triple H knows he needs stars, and he needs stars now, but also for the future. Vince stopped building stars because he wanted the brand to be important. He wanted WWF. We're well fed. That was not the case, though, and
it's kind of funny because TNA that we're going to talk. I'm going to bring this up as a bigger point tomorrow. TNA is running an arena next year that hosted one of the Forbidden Door events.
Yeah.
When was the last time we saw TNA in a venue that big? Now, that's up to TNA, their success, their talent, them grinding and doing whatever in small buildings to get where they are, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, rubbing elbows with WWE doesn't hurt that.
No, it doesn't.
Anyways.
It really doesn't. So we're going to go ahead down to our number ones. Let's go ahead for Nostalgia Shakes and hit the countdown one more time. My number one, it's pretty evidently obvious. It's very easy to predict if you know me and you know what we have discussed. The vindication of CM Punk.
Boom.
So that's my number one for the year with the countdown aside. I could not have been more pleased, thankful, and appreciative of what they've done, what WWE has done with CM Punk in 2024. Yes, he debuted at Survivor Series, but really he started this year, and he's had a total of 5, count them, 5 matches, one of which being the Rumble where he was injured. And Punk was injured twice in AEW, and he disappeared for almost a year the first time. It was like 8 or 9 months around that point from Brawl out to when he came back in 2022. I want to say it was like April-ish, May, somewhere along there, because then eventually the year after, when he got hurt again, he came back and went into the real world title and Collision and all those things. Point being, they successfully went ahead and used Punk injured better than AEW could healthy. You heard the rumblings, you heard the rumors, you heard, if he joins, the company's going to fall apart. There goes the locker room. You better sign him with a clause that says any problems, he's fired immediately. All Punk has done so far is elevate everyone around him.
All it took was the people above him not shitting on him.
Exactly. I mean, the Drew feud is probably feud of the year. The Bad Blood Hell in a Cell match could be argued match of the year. Him being added to War Games made that so much more compelling because of the story between him and Roman. There's a reason that Roman just stopping Punk from entering the match had over 100 million views.
Everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So Punk's involvement, his just being attached to any scenario at this point elevates it. We saw him with the 3 matches with Drew. And then the War Games, we know there's so much more on the horizon. How does he get to the main event at WrestleMania? What is his avenue to get there? Is it the Rumble? Is it the Chamber? Does he risk it? He has done amazing on screen as much as off screen. He's donated a ton of his time. He's helped out with the NXT crew. He's been in the Performance Center. He's just been a stellar employee all around. He has been the guy, and there has not been one issue, bad words, stems nothing. Him and Randy had heat that stemmed from years ago, and right away they were able to bury the hatchet and work together. I
think The Miz as well.
The Miz as well.
Wasn't there a story about The Miz as well?
Yep. They were able to talk things up, him and Owens briefly. Like, they had issues, and things were addressed. Not only did they keep CM Punk injured on our screen, so they advanced the feud. I mean, really, it was about a friendship bracelet, and that turned to be one of the most compelling and entertaining things of the entire year. So without keeping you here for hours, it's pretty much his work is stated for himself. I can't help but say CM Punk, his 2024, that's my number one for the year. What about you, Sir Spaz? What is your number one on the countdown?
I mean, because I was going to mention.
Oh, I know you got to comment on this, but
I was going to mention the CM Punk thing as well. I going to try and not shoot on AEW, but maybe just don't shit on the guy, and you might still have numbers on Collision, and you might not be canceling Rampage,
or bring Tony Storm back on Rampage.
Oh my God! Oh my. Oh,
knocking that out of the park.
God damn. I think it's time for I think it's time for the narrative to be, oh, who should WWE save in 2025? Considering that was the narrative the other way for so much of. Remember the first little bit of the run there where it was like, oh, AEW saved Ruby Riott. Oh, okay, and did what with her? You saved Ember Moon and you shunted her over onto Ring of Honor and never to be seen again. You got I don't know, Rusev and you killed Adam Cole a couple of times and all that kind of thing. But like, in all seriousness, what they've done, other than the story that they told with Drew, which has taken up the majority of the year, the stuff that was teased, the stuff that was teased with Cody in just that one promo that made me want to see that match that I want to see anyway. The stuff that we're now doing with where he's kind of buddies with everybody. That's
so
good.
many teases, so many potential future matches.
He's good with Rhea. He's good with Jay. He's good with Sammy, even though that'll probably leak into a Kevin Owens thing at some point. I think what WWE did more than anybody else was give CM Punk and acknowledge that CM Punk can give you more than just a wrestler. Yeah. And I know that's really cheesy, but like he did the commentary thing at WrestleMania. Now, yes, that did how can I say this? That did translate into the feud that he was having with Drew later on in the night. But we know from previous experience. Remember when the night that everybody on Raw went on strike?
The walkout,
several years ago. Can I wear your blazer? And then he was on commentary for the night. Like, we know that he can do that. The fact that
I love that night. I still go back to that night because you're going to have Cena and Sheamus eventually just wrestle a broom, and Triple H was going to be the ref, and everybody walked out on him. It was stupid, but it was memorable because of Punk getting on commentary, and he's good on commentary.
And it's funny to think of now, but think about back then. The interactions between him and Hunter, were hilarious.
Exactly.
But like, even
he was a pain in everyone's side, and it was funny to see.
Take it out of the Drew story, and you had the kickoffs. And I don't want to put him in the same category as Big E because Big E's situation is a lot more drastic, and nothing different. Yeah, nothing but good issue or good wishes for that guy. Chris Bay as well. Switching gears to TNA, Chris Bay is on his way to the mend, etc. So we hope good things for him as well. But Punk was injured, and Big E was injured, and they're both big personalities. So they had them on the kickoffs for several shows. And never mind, like, Jackie Redmond or Sam, whatever the hell his name is or whatever.
Yeah.
Just the general, like, throw us a new topic and we'll have some banter between CM Punk and Big E.
Yeah. And people just want to see that go back and forth, and it's like, oh God, their interactions. He's humid, they're having fun.
You don't want to see anybody get hurt, and I'm saying all the cliche things, but I'm kind of glad in the sense that it showed that WWE knows he has more to offer than just what he does bell to bell or just what he does on the mic from the perspective of a story and a promo. What we've heard backstage, and I think everything that he's done has been met with so much pushback from all the people for obvious reasons. Oh, he's going to help NXT. I bet he's only working with the women, eh? That's a little bit weird. Okay, except here's Carmelo Hayes talking him up. Here's Trick Williams talking him up. Here's Braun Breaker talking him up. Here's, like, Sean Spears and Ridge Holland and all these guys and Ethan Page, like, talking him up. But no, let's focus on the women because you want to make it a weird, pervy thing. Let's focus with all these ladies that are friends with his wife, or he's going to go do Hell in the Cell. Nah, he's fragile. He's going to fall into a million pieces.
You girls are in NXT. Let me take pictures of your feet. Come here. Yeah, that was our top story of the year.
No, but then we turn around. Then we turn around and Hell in the Cell. Now, this had a lot going against it. This was a story that was told mostly non-physically, mostly with one person doing a promo one week and another person doing a promo the next week. It's Hell in the Cell, which had a horrible record in WWE for the longest time, and it had a bunch of people, let's be honest, kind of hoping that he got injured again so that he could say, oh, look, it's fragile.
Yeah,
Phil,
he's injury prone. He's broken. He's a shell of his former self.
Meanwhile, what does he do? His first major thing in WWE, really, his first really gigantic claim to fame is he completely resurrected the Hell in the Cell concept.
Yes.
Along with Drew.
Absolutely.
Don't let me take the credit away.
No,
from
but yeah,
right?
Drew's included, but no, Punk absolutely.
But they knock it out of the park. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess he was lucky. I guess he's just going to break twice as much next time. No, we'll throw him in War Games, and you can fuck yourself.
Yeah, it's no
Like-
longer the bright red milk crate that turned into a playpen for
Yeah.
it finally had a purpose. It was going to be a feud ender. It wasn't going to be at a Hell in a Cell show where every match has to be inside a Hell in a Cell. If you notice, we're getting away from those gimmicks more so. Like, I get having the chamber still, and I hope they get away from some of the parody. I get they'll have 2 Rumbles, 2 Chambers, 2 Money in the Banks, but I wish they could find a way. If they're going to do 2 nights for everything, it kind of writes itself. But I wish they
Money
would
in the Bank
alternate
is
with
the one I
certain
wish.
things.
I think you could move around a little bit. I think you could do like a men's Money in the Bank on another show, and then like later on in the year do a ladies' Money in the Bank on a random show.
I always liked having one at Mania. I think it's
Yeah.
a big deal to have that, briefcase for like the men at Mania, the women at SummerSlam, and then you alternate.
Yeah, Mania, you could even get away with doing them in the same weekend because you can spread them out over 2 nights. I know it's not super ideal, but it's a little bit more. It's a little bit less egregious than cramming 2 on the same night. So I think it's a happy medium.
Absolutely. And sir, best for last, you're number 1, please. Drum roll, sir.
All right, as cheesy as it is, and this has been my thing for the night. It's got a lot of different elements to it, but what's WWE done in 2024? WWE isn't one thing, it's 1,000 things, and WWE is a feeling.
I love that explanation. Ooh.
Listen to an international crowd. Listen to places in the world that have never had WWE live there before. Look at the numbers. Look at the buildings. Look at the fans. Listen to the fans. Listen to the fact that you've got a noise meter on the pay-per-views now. Oh, it's totally fake. I don't care. It reflects what I'm hearing. Let me just say, like,
absolutely,
NXT is going from the CW or from the PC to on the road. NXT
to on the CW,
yeah. On the CW, but going out of the PC and on the road, like we saw this week in Lowell, like we're going to see in January in LA. NXT PLEs are still going to arenas. Arena shows are filling more than they ever have. Shows that used to be in arenas are now in stadiums. Shows that were already established in stadiums are expanding to 2 nights. It's going all over the world. It's going to Netflix. It's outgrown television.
I mean, you're not wrong, because we're seeing now
anything can happen.
House shows are. I mean, they have a house show coming up in Fresno, California, at the Save Mart Center. It's set up for 10,000 fans, and they've already distributed 9,000 tickets for a house show.
I told you there's, and this isn't a dig, but it's just a measurement of where they both are. World's End is happening on the 28th. WWE is doing a house show on the same day in the same city that has 2,000 more seats sold than World's End, the pay-per-view. And please, guys, I know it usually is, but this is not me taking a dig at AEW. This is me saying, point blank, a WWE house show is outselling a pay-per-view, any pay-per-view. And it's fucking massive, man.
They had 18 weeks straight of selling out Raw, SmackDown, all of that stuff. That's incredible.
We've gone from, and this is the thing too, the product itself, this is all numbers. This is all, okay, we're making money, okay, we're filling buildings, okay, we are going to bigger buildings. It's exciting, but it's all numbers at the end of the day, right?
Yep.
WWE has gone from an era where if they did something good one week, you'd roll your eyes and say, yeah, but it's going to go back to sucking next week, to now where if something doesn't quite measure up to 110% of what we wanted, we'll be like, cool, they'll get it next week.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a million things. It's a lot of the production things that you talked about. It's a lot of like, let's do something different. Let's make it look different. Let's go somewhere different. Let's work with other people. Let's work with different people. Let's pull in different people. Let's partner with different people.
And our points coincide so well because it's not just Punk. Punk wouldn't have been able to return if it was the same WWE. No. If it was the same company that he ran away from all those years ago. You know, he didn't wrestle for 7 years. He stayed away because of how bad and traumatized he was from the WWE machine. And you think about the grinder that they had these wrestlers on. They had to go to Raw, then Tuesday they filmed SmackDown, then they got to go home till Thursday, sometimes Friday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday they'd have house shows, Sunday they'd have a pay-per-view, sometimes they'd work twice in the day, they'd do a house show, then a pay-per-view, then back they got to be for Raw. Now they're going out, twice a week instead of every day, and things are better managed. Health is more of a forefront for wrestlers. Fans even know that, hey, if someone gets hurt in the match, we don't need to see them power through. You can stop the match. Yeah. We realize they're injured. Like, shit happens.
And they have enough stars that people can take breaks. People can, like, I use the Seth Rollins example because he's been really unlucky with some of his situations.
Yeah.
Yes, we will miss Seth Rollins on our television, but there will be no gap of star power. Either somebody will step in or somebody will step up.
They're avoiding burnout.
And it happens in equal measure as well.
Absolutely. They are avoiding burnout in spades by having people be able to take the spotlight. And it shows the strain that was on Cena's shoulders for so long, where if he wasn't advertised to be at a Raw, they weren't selling out. They weren't even selling tickets at that time. They had the tarps and stuff. But they had to have John in there taking on an AJ Styles for it to even happen for SmackDown to get 3,000 fans. Now they don't need that. You can sell out a show on the name Rhea Ripley alone.
Yeah, of course. And you don't have to tell everybody that you sold out the arena. Hey, Juan Salazar, you're not late. You're right on time like a wizard.
Hopefully you feel better, though, Juan. It's one of those days for everybody. We went from having snow on Monday. Tuesday was very, very warm here in the 60s. Then yesterday was freezing. Today it's in the 40s. So weather's got everybody screwed up,
But they don't have to tell you that they sold out a building. You can tell that they sold out a building because they have to tear down the Titantron.
Exactly, because they're stuffing fans into every space they can. They're adding seats on top of seats. And now that also even affected the ticket marketing, which kind of sucks for the wrestlers not being able to get tickets going forward.
Yeah, they wanted to bring their parents to the show and they couldn't get a ticket because they were sold out.
They get links to where to purchase tickets.
Yeah.
Instead
Sorry,
of
your parents
tickets.
Are going to have to wait in the gorilla position instead while you get this raucous ovation.
Yeah.
I am predicting a wall of sound when I step back into the Sky Dome for the first time in 23 years for
Elevation. My God, you are going to have just the best
I
time
am
there.
going to have the best
Your
time.
first show was Rockin' Hogan for,
the first wrestling show I was ever at was WrestleMania 18. Talk about setting yourself up with a high standard.
Yeah, no kidding. You can't top that. WrestleMania is still on my bucket list. So to attend 18 out of everything too, that one was just...
Yeah, it gets a weird placement when I hear people make their lists of WrestleMania because it's sandwiched between 17 and 19, which are the two that people usually mention as what's the best WrestleMania. And I'm like,
favorites. Yeah.
I'm gonna just go ahead and say that I was there with Rock and Hogan, and I couldn't hear the entrance music because of the wall of sound.
Yeah, that was.
I hope
incredible.
there's no Tron. I hope there's no tunnel. I hope there's so many people in that building that the people literally have to make their entrances through the crowd.
Well,
not
especially
because
with the chamber being so big, bud. You're really gonna, you know what I mean? Like they might have no choice.
Yeah,
they might have to do the small
not because
stuff.
they're all emulating the Shield, but just because there's no other way to get to the ring.
Exactly.
The last thing I'll say about this, as far as the anything can happen, have faith in everything, have faith in anything, it's another switch from like having one good thing on the show to maybe having one less than great thing on the show.
Yeah.
I'll use Jordynne Grace as an example, right? Because Jordynne Grace is a great talking point. I mean, the conversation has shifted a little bit to Tessa Blanchard this week, but Jordynne Grace.
Surprise. And just a side note, TNA hires Blanchard and Riddle.
Did they hire Riddle?
Yeah, I thought they did.
He showed up on the show the one night to sub in for somebody. I don't know. I haven't heard.
I heard that they were working on some contract with him, so I don't know if anything has been ironed out yet. But still, it was just funny. It's like cancel.
A lot of
your
people are
cancel
leaving.
culture.
A lot of people are leaving though. Trent Seven.
Exodus,
Trent Seven is leaving. Josh Alexander's leaving. Jade Chung. I would love granted, it's Josh Alexander's wife. And whatever, but just as an announcer, as a personality, I've met her, and she's really nice.
Oh, sure.
I would love to see her show up on NXT or Raw or SmackDown or wherever they make use of her because she's a great host, she's a great ring announcer, and
Raw needs a ring announcer eventually. Lillian Garcia is not going to be able to do it forever. I like Lillian, no doubt, but You can tell they kind of like begged her to throw her into that role. So
yeah. Anyways, my point is going to be like, whereas nothing could happen before because everything was really regimented and we're kind of in the anything can happen era, right? So we've gone from Royal Rumble, where of all people, Jordan Grace shows up in the Rumble, and it's like, holy fuck, how the hell did this happen? Huge surprise. We've reached the other side where something like that happening isn't a surprise anymore.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Absolutely.
It's become expected that anything can happen. Now, I will say, anything can be a double-edged sword, because you go into every pay-per-view thinking there could be this drastic surprise, and sometimes the show just stands on its own merit, which is a different kind of victory, but people will walk away being like, oh, I thought there was going to be a surprise. Like
Saturday night's main event as well. Yeah,
Saturday night's War Games.
War Games, especially because they hung around after the main event. Yeah.
Yeah, they could have done 100 different run-ins. They could have done some more Rock stuff. You know, Punk could have turned on Paul Heyman or something ridiculous. One of the Usos could have kicked the other one. Something. Apparently, they had a different direction for Bronson Reed as well that was going to involve Seth Rollins and get Seth Rollins and him at Saturday night's main event one more time. But it's one of those, there's no surprise.
Yeah.
And then you sit back and you sit for a second. It's like, but that show wasn't depending on a surprise.
No, and did we need one?
The show kicked ass on its own merit, and that's a different kind of win. So while we're talking about all these awesome, crazy, hey, we could get somebody from Noah, we could get somebody from TNA, or somebody from Bloodsport, or something along those lines, you could also have just WWE being WWE, and that itself has raised itself to a higher standard.
Backing up your point, Spaz, is literally Bad Blood. They did not need The Rock to come out. Cody and Roman had that great match to send everybody home happy. The Rock coming out was the hat on a hat, but it works for story. But people were kind of expecting a bit of a surprise there. But
again, I'll say, in the old days, Rock coming out at the end would have overshadowed everything.
Yes. Now it's just
he's a link in the chain.
Yes.
Everybody else that was in that match comes out the next night on Raw, or the next at the end of the next week on SmackDown, still standing 10 feet tall.
You got that for damn sure.
And it doesn't change anything about the fact that everybody coming out of that show was talking about the first match anyway.
Exactly.
I cannot believe, like, it was a ballsy move. It was a bold strategy, Cotton, as they say. But making that Hell in the Cell with Drew and Punk the first match of the night was a hell of a gamble.
Yeah.
And it said to everybody else, because this is the one we said, all the matches in the middle could have been swapped around. Maybe some of the stuff that was put on regular TV could have been on there instead. It gave everybody else on that show, including the main event, a hell of a thing to try and measure up to. You know, do the Dolph Ziggler, follow that bitch.
Yeah, exactly. And shout out to the final boss in the chat.
Hey!
It was the final boss, The Rock himself, that came out and made that memorable. But like you said, just another link in the chain. It all added to the overall story. Spaz, I know I've kept you for far longer than we planned on, but I knew that you and I were going to ramble through quite a hell of a topic here.
And we're going to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow on your channel, we're going to be going ahead for the State of Wrestling. We'll be discussing pretty much what do we want from 2025? What do we think is going to happen? We're going to be, putting on our genie hats and doing some predictions. And then I will be live for AEW World's End. I'll be live that Saturday night for the review. I believe it's that Saturday. And then I will be live after Raw on Netflix on January 6th, because that's essentially a mini WrestleMania. I mean, Seth and Punk was supposed to be the main event of night one of Mania, at least rumored, last year. So having them be the main event here.
Instead, it's the main event of night one of Raw
on Netflix.
Hey, it all comes around eventually.
Exactly. So, Spaz.
Juan Salazar says, what are the chances that Tessa Blanchard is in the Royal Rumble this year? Oh,
that's an interesting one. I was going to ask that too. Say, Spaz, what do you think of this? But
you're slipping that one in right at the end. I'm sorry. I've seen enough of Tessa Blanchard wrestle to know that I want to see more of Tessa Blanchard wrestling.
Yeah.
There is a large conversation to be had about cancel culture that I think we're both too tired for right now. Definitely a future conversation.
So long as she's not selling any more poop audio, she might be okay. But working with NXT,
if she comes to the ring and just bitch slaps Bianca Belair and leaves,
they just run right in the kisser. Think about it; could be epic, But there's a lot of history there. Back of the ring and back of the line. I'm telling you. Spaz, tell them where they can find you, my good man.
You can find me at Spaz Phoenix on Twitter. You can find me at Spaz Phoenix on Instagram. You can find me at Spaz Phoenix Podcast on YouTube, at Spaz Phoenix Podcast on Rumble, at Spaz Phoenix Podcast on Spotify, at Spaz Phoenix Podcast on iTunes. I think I'm still at Spaz Phoenix Podcast on Amazon Podcasts as well. These live streams that I do here with Jake also get uploaded as audio on those platforms as well. We will be doing the State of Wrestling, as Jake said, our top 5 2025 wrestling wish list gimmick type things, which will probably be up sometime Friday morning. And if not there, then come back and find me here, because I'll be hanging out in Jake's neck of the woods as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, thank you for everything. This was a ton of fun. I'm glad to have everybody that hung out with us tonight. I hope you all, if I don't talk to you before then, have a safe and Merry Christmas, a happy holiday. Spaz, my buddy from the north, I appreciate you greatly. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. It was a ton of fun. I love the predictions. I love the stuff we get to talk. I appreciate you putting up the audio version of this, so again, people can check that out. And like you said, we'll be having the State of Wrestling on your channel soon, and then we'll be live coming up with Netflix and all the good stuff. For everybody else, I appreciate you all. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you soon. Stay sexy, guys.